What started as a thrilling orca show on Christmas Eve at Loro Park Zoo ended in tragedy for star trainer Alexis Martinez. At the peak of his career, Alexis had spent countless hours working with Hugo, the orca he'd trained and trusted for years. But in an instant, that trust was shattered in what would become his final performance. Born and raised in Spain, Alexis Martinez had always held a deep fascination for animals. He started working at Loro Park Zoo in 2004, about the time the park introduced orcas to its marine life exhibits. This opportunity had been a dream come true for Alexis, who quickly rose through the ranks to become one of the park's leading trainers. At just 29, he was already recognized for his talent, calm demeanor, and dedication to his work. By the time of the incident, Loro Park housed 4 orcas and employed a small team of specialized trainers, each carefully chosen for their ability to work with these powerful animals. Hugo was born in captivity in 1995 at SeaWorld Orlando, far from the wild waters where orcas truly belong. He knew nothing but the confinement of marine tanks, where he was groomed to perform from a young age, trained to execute precise routines for the thrill of a watching crowd. By 2006, he was transferred thousands of miles across the Atlantic to Loro Park in the Canary Islands, where he became a main attraction. But Hugo was not just a showpiece. At over 6,600 pounds, he embodied the raw, untamed power of the ocean. Behind those controlled performances lay an unpredictable force, and even with rigorous training, there was always an edge of risk. His immense size, combined with an instinctive power, brought an underlying and constant tension to every interaction. Hugo may have been born in captivity, but lurking within was the mind and muscle of a predator, a creature that could turn in an instant. And that Christmas Eve in 2009 would become a day that no trainer or guest at Loro Park would ever forget. The show unfolded with all the excitement and awe the audience had come to expect. Families watched in anticipation, eyes fixed on Alexis and the powerful orca by his side. For Alexis, this night was a chance to display the deep connection and skill built over years with Hugo. He had worked tirelessly to perfect each movement, every flip and glide, and tonight it all came together. He was the star trainer, known for his bond with the orcas and his captivating performances, and this night would be no exception. As Alexis slipped into the water, Hugo moved beside him, an enormous, sleek form cutting through the pool. Together they danced, a display of strength and elegance rehearsed to perfection. Each command seemed to unlock a moment of brilliance from the orca. Trainers along the edge, including Brian Roich, stood ready, their eyes trained on every flick of Hugo's tail and rise of Alexis's hand. The crowd cheered louder with each feat, their applause swelling with every flawless move. Yet, as the performance reached its peak, a tension began to fill the air. Hugo's movements shifted, his massive body slowing, his powerful tail cutting through the water with a new intensity. Alexis continued, steady and poised, guiding Hugo with a calm certainty. But suddenly, Hugo blocked his path, his immense body pressing into the space where Alexis needed to move. The crowd watched, captivated, unaware of the shift. In a terrifying instant, Hugo's playful energy turned deadly. With a powerful lunge, he rammed Alexis, pinning him to the bottom of the 40-foot pool. Was this just a display of dominance or something far darker? The audience remained silent, captivated yet unaware, while trainers shouted commands that fell on deaf ears. Hugo, locked in, seemed unstoppable, and what had started as a routine show had turned into a nightmare unfolding before their eyes. The horrified crowd, paralyzed by shock, began to realize they were witnessing one of the darkest moments in SeaWorld's history. Was this the moment that would finally shatter the illusion of control over these powerful animals? In that moment, the water turned from a stage to a battleground. Hugo rammed Alexis again and again, crushing him against the walls of the tank, his massive body shuddering with each impact. Above, the trainers acted fast, sending signals and calling for emergency measures, but Kido held his ground, defying every attempt to separate him from the trainer. The orca surfaced briefly, lifting Alexis's body on his nose, as if presenting him to the stunned audience before dragging him back down into the depths. When Kido finally released him, Alexis's lifeless form lay at the bottom of the tank, his injuries devastating, his body bearing the brutal marks of Kido's force. The rescue team rushed to pull him from the water, but it was already too late. Alexis had died from his injuries. The park fell silent, the cheers replaced by the weight of what had just occurred. In the aftermath of Alexis Martinez's shocking death, Loro Park came under intense scrutiny. The park's initial explanation, drowning, quickly unraveled under the harsh truth of the autopsy. Multiple fractures, crushed organs, and clear bite marks told a different story, one of a brutal attack. Was this an isolated tragedy, or was it part of a pattern? Just 3 years earlier, trainer Claudia Volhard had suffered a similar fate, pulled underwater and battered by an orca, an incident the park brushed off as accidental. Could there be a deeper issue lurking beneath the surface? The fallout from Alexis's death reverberated throughout the marine entertainment industry. Loro Park suspended all in-water performances with orcas, an unprecedented pause for the park as they reassessed safety protocols and introduced stricter barriers between trainers and orcas. The incident contributed to a growing movement questioning the ethics of keeping these intelligent, powerful animals in captivity, pushing both Loro Park and other parks to reconsider the future of orca shows. The loss of Alexis Martinez stunned trainers everywhere, leading many to reconsider what it meant to work alongside these animals. But just months later, another seasoned trainer would face an even more dramatic turn. At SeaWorld Orlando, Dawn Brancheau prepared to perform, unaware that her deep bond with a 22-foot orca would soon unravel in front of a packed audience. This was no ordinary performance. It would be her last, a moment that would forever change the way the world saw killer whales. The crowd at SeaWorld Orlando leaned forward in their seats, eyes fixed on Dawn Brancheau as she prepared to interact with Tilikum, the massive orca she'd trained for years. Everything seemed in place: the sunlit water, Dawn's confident smile, the rhythmic rise of Tilikum's dorsal fin as he swam nearby. But just beneath that calm surface, an unpredictable force lay waiting, and as Dawn signaled to Tilikum, no one in the crowd could have guessed that they were seconds away from witnessing a tragedy that would forever alter the world of marine shows. Dawn Brancheau had dreamed of working with orcas ever since she was 10. A family trip to SeaWorld had changed her life, igniting a passion for these immense, graceful creatures. Her journey from that wide-eyed little girl to one of SeaWorld's star trainers spanned years of dedication, education, and sheer hard work. Now, as a leading figure in SeaWorld's Shamu show, she'd become a face of the park, respected for her skill and the close bond she had with the orcas. For more than 16 years, Dawn had been a beloved trainer, her performances drawing massive crowds, each captivated by her seeming harmony with some of the ocean's most formidable animals. But among the orcas, Tilikum was different. Standing over 22 feet long and weighing nearly 12,000 pounds, he was the largest orca in captivity. His history was dark, marred by troubling incidents, yet he had spent years with SeaWorld, part of their most popular shows. With a history stretching back to the icy waters off Iceland, Tilikum had been captured as a 2-year-old and transported into a world confined by walls and schedules. Though his size made him impressive to watch, it also brought challenges, as he struggled with limited space and social isolation from other orcas. Despite his reputation, Dawn had worked closely with him for years, building a careful routine and familiarity that made their bond appear seamless to onlookers. It was February 24, 2010, during SeaWorld's popular Dine with Shamu event. Dawn lay flat on her stomach by the tank's edge, signaling Tilikum to approach. It was a routine she'd practiced hundreds of times, her long ponytail trailing down, a signal he recognized well. To the audience, it was another thrilling moment, a breathtaking glimpse into the connection between human and creature. But in a sudden, chilling twist, the familiar turned deadly. Without warning, Tilikum grabbed Dawn's ponytail in his jaws and yanked her into the water. A gasp spread through the audience, some assuming it was part of the show, others feeling a chill of unease. Trainers watching from nearby knew immediately something was wrong. Tilikum's grip was unyielding as he pulled Dawn deeper, his massive body moving with a raw power that was impossible to counter. Dawn fought with everything she had, her experience and strength no match for the orca's sheer force. As she struggled to surface, Tilikum slammed her against the walls of the tank, his actions relentless and terrifying. Every command and cue thrown his way went ignored, the signals he'd responded to countless times seeming to fall on deaf ears. Tilikum was beyond reach, lost to a primal instinct that had been held at bay for years. Each second became an agonizing eternity as Dawn tried to break free, only to be pulled back, tossed, and battered. The onlookers' shock turned to horror as the water grew red and cries began to fill the stadium. Trainers desperately worked to distract Tilikum, slapping the water and throwing emergency signals. But he wouldn't release his grip, locked in a terrifying fury. Dawn's injuries were catastrophic. In those brutal moments, her spine was severed, her ribs broken, and her left arm and scalp torn. Her body went limp, yet Tilikum continued to thrash her, his hold unyielding even as she was beyond help. It took over 30 minutes to finally retrieve her body. The horrified crowd, paralyzed by shock, began to realize they were witnessing one of the darkest moments in SeaWorld's history. A moment that would forever alter the world of marine animal entertainment. As Dawn's lifeless body was finally retrieved from the tank, a stunned silence spread through the stadium, interrupted only by quiet sobs from witnesses and murmurs from onlookers. Trainers, many who had known Dawn for years, stood shaken, grieving the loss of a beloved colleague. In the hours that followed, SeaWorld staff moved swiftly to close the park, guiding guests out and setting up barriers around the area. Emergency responders arrived, and officials from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration launched an investigation, beginning a deeper scrutiny that would shake the marine park industry. The public reacted immediately. News outlets worldwide reported on Dawn's tragic end, and as details emerged, the pattern of incidents became undeniable. Tilikum had been involved in 2 prior fatalities. In 1991, a young trainer at Sealand of the Pacific died in a similar incident, and later in 1999, a man who had entered Tilikum's tank after hours was found dead, his body battered by the orca. These previous events, previously downplayed, now resurfaced under a critical lens as the public demanded answers. SeaWorld temporarily halted its orca shows, initiating internal reviews and adding stricter protocols to prevent further tragedies. Dawn's death cast a long shadow over SeaWorld, leaving an urgent question: could trainers truly be safe with these powerful creatures? Not long after, trainer Steve Abel would confront that question firsthand when his trusted orca suddenly turned on him mid-performance. Steve Abel was a veteran SeaWorld trainer, known to thousands of visitors at the San Antonio park. Over nearly 2 decades, he formed an impressive bond with the massive orca Kai, captivating audiences with their synchronized movements and trust-filled routines. But on a summer day in 2004, this trust would face its greatest test. A day that started as a routine performance took a sudden and terrifying turn. On July 27th, with the sun rising high over San Antonio, SeaWorld Stadium filled with eager spectators for the Shamu Adventure Show. At the center of this spectacle were Steve and Kai, a 9,000-pound orca stretching 22 feet in length. The routine was carefully crafted over years of training, perfected in countless rehearsals. Steve, with 17 years of experience, knew Kai's every move and had fostered a strong connection with him. Today seemed like any other show, until it wasn't. Steve had long been admired by fans and colleagues alike, known for his calm demeanor and near-instinctive understanding of marine animals. Kai, in turn, had become a fixture in these performances, often mesmerizing the crowd with his athletic displays. Despite the grandeur, the risks were always present, lurking just beneath the surface. Kai, a fully grown orca, possessed an immense untamed strength, and while years of training allowed Steve to develop a rapport with the animal, he understood the delicate line he walked with each show. Would today be the day that line was crossed? As the performance began, Steve entered the tank, moving in sync with Kai. The orca executed flips and spins with ease, eliciting cheers from the audience. Every maneuver seemed routine, every interaction calculated. But then, with no apparent provocation, Kai's behavior changed. Steve gave a command, but instead of complying, Kai paused. Steve tried to redirect him with a familiar signal, but the orca's gaze had turned unreadable, his movements suddenly unpredictable. Suddenly, Kai's demeanor shifted. With a swift, unrestrained surge, he charged at Steve, sending waves crashing against the sides of the tank. The impact hit like a tidal wave, and Steve, momentarily stunned, struggled to regain his balance. For a brief, harrowing moment, the audience thought this might be part of the performance, but the intensity of Kai's movements told a different story. The orca's strikes grew more forceful, his powerful body slamming into Steve, who fought to stay above the waterline. Kai seized Steve, holding him underwater. In an instant, the orca launched him upward, only to slam him back down, each motion displaying Kai's immense strength. Steve's training instincts engaged as he struggled to stay calm, his muscles straining to keep his head above water. The orca's 9,000-pound frame turned into a powerful force, tossing Steve around as if he weighed nothing. At the pool's edge, fellow trainers sprang into action, slapping the water and throwing fish in desperate attempts to draw Kai's attention. The atmosphere buzzed with tension as they frantically signaled, trying every emergency tactic to reach him. Yet, Kai, later described as overstimulated, remained beyond their cues, his focus locked solely on Steve. Would any of their efforts break through the powerful orca's single-minded intensity? With a surge of adrenaline, Steve managed to free himself briefly, only for Kai to rush at him again, dragging him to the tank's depths. Each brutal slam echoed underwater, leaving Steve battered and breathless. The audience, horrified, sat in stunned silence, many covering their eyes, unable to bear what felt like Steve's final moments. But through sheer will, Steve held on, using his years of experience to stay still whenever Kai let go, avoiding movements that might trigger another attack. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Kai's aggression eased. As Steve pulled himself from the tank, the silence was broken by scattered gasps and murmurs from the stunned audience. Trainers rushed to his side, steadying him as he caught his breath, his body bearing the visible marks of the ordeal. The reality of what had just unfolded set in, and SeaWorld staff quickly ushered the crowd away, keenly aware of the gravity of the incident. In the aftermath of Steve's encounter with Kai, SeaWorld took immediate steps to reevaluate its protocols and policies. Close contact interactions with Kai were permanently suspended, and the incident added fuel to the growing debate over orca captivity. Yet, while Steve's brush with danger left him shaken, other orcas had endured far darker fates in captivity. Among the most haunting of these stories was that of Hugo, a performing orca who, after years of self-destructive behaviors and deteriorating health, chose a path that left the world stunned. His tragic end would reveal a harsh reality about life in captivity and the toll it takes on even the strongest of spirits. Hugo's story unfolds with a somber inevitability, beginning as he took his first breath in the open ocean of the Pacific Northwest. It was 1965, and Hugo was born into a pod of southern resident killer whales, roaming vast waters, thriving in the rhythms of the wild. Little could he know that just 3 years later, his life would forever be altered, taken from his family and his ocean home. Hugo's capture occurred in 1968 in the cold waters of Warren Bay, Washington. A powerful orca calf, only 3 years old, he was wrested from his family's side and transported over 3,000 miles to a world far removed from the one he knew. This concrete enclosure, named the Celebrity Bowl, would be Hugo's new reality. Here, he became a spectacle, a captive performer for thousands of visitors who marveled at his size and strength, unaware of the confinement and isolation eating away at his spirit. The Celebrity Bowl was no substitute for the open ocean. Hugo's tank was small, his world reduced to a fraction of what his kind was meant to roam. Each performance drew in eager crowds, captivated by the sight of Hugo, a glimpse of the ocean's wild majesty behind glass. But what they didn't see was the desperation building within him. Richard O'Barry, Hugo's trainer, saw the impact of captivity firsthand. In Behind the Dolphin's Smile, he captured the heartbreaking scene. When I fed Hugo, his tail would be lying on the bottom and his head would be completely out of the water. It was pathetic. They wanted me to train him. I refused and left in disgust. Though Hugo became a staple of the aquarium, each show masked a painful truth. Those quirks weren't for entertainment. They were signs of a mind fraying under strain. With every passing day, Hugo grew closer to the breaking point, an outcome that would shock everyone, yet in some way felt tragically inevitable. In the early 1970s, the aquarium paired Hugo with a new companion, Lolita, another orca taken from the ocean, who had similarly lost her family to captivity. Their bond was undeniable. Lolita brought Hugo the comfort of companionship he had long missed, and the two orcas soon became inseparable. Together, they became the stars of the aquarium, captivating audiences with their graceful maneuvers and synchronized routines. But while the crowds cheered, Hugo's spirit remained restless. He had not forgotten the freedom of his former life. How much could one animal endure before reaching its breaking point? As the years wore on, Hugo's frustration boiled over into violent outbursts. His massive body would slam into the tank walls, raising alarms among staff and trainers. But still, no one took action to address the deeper issues. In 1970, during what should have been a routine training session, Hugo lashed out. A trainer made the risky choice of reaching into his mouth, and Hugo clamped down, inflicting injuries that required 10 stitches. The aggression didn't stop there. In 1971, Hugo smashed his head so hard against the tank's plastic wall that it fractured, leaving him with a severe injury on his snout. Staff patched the wound, yet within a week the stitches came undone, leaving a permanent depression. A physical reminder of the damage captivity was inflicting on him. How much longer could Hugo sustain this agony before his spirit shattered completely? In 1972, another trainer at the aquarium recalled Hugo's aggression. Max Jacks described how Hugo, once gentle, had begun forcefully bumping into staff and visitors, showing little of his former tolerance. Hugo's mental state continued to decline, his behavior growing more erratic. The aquarium staff brushed off each incident as an unfortunate consequence of keeping large, intelligent predators in confinement. But Hugo's actions spoke of a desperation that no handler could fully comprehend. By the end of the decade, the signs of Hugo's deteriorating sanity were clear. The playful, powerful orca was now seen more often slamming his head against the walls of his tank than performing stunts. This behavior became routine, a harrowing ritual of self-destruction that escalated in intensity. Yet, the aquarium pressed on, promoting Hugo and Lolita as major attractions, drawing in crowds unaware of the suffering behind their performances. In early 1980, Hugo's condition began to show clear signs of deterioration. His usual energy faded, replaced by a sluggishness that trainers and spectators alike couldn't ignore. But the aquarium's management dismissed it, pushing Hugo to continue his training without any medical checkups. On March 4, 1980, during a routine rehearsal with Lolita, Hugo suddenly stopped moving. He drifted to the tank's surface, motionless as if in a deep sleep. Trainers called out to him, tossing bait into the water, but he didn't respond. What began as an ordinary day in the tank had shifted into a gut-wrenching realization. Hugo, the beloved orca who had captivated thousands, was gone. Was it simply his time, or did captivity push Hugo to his breaking point? An autopsy later confirmed that Hugo had died from a brain aneurysm, a fatal condition likely brought on by years of ramming his head against the tank walls. While the aquarium dismissed his death as an isolated case, animal activists and former trainers knew better. To them, Hugo's death was a chilling reminder of the mental and physical toll captivity took on him. Despite this tragedy, the aquarium continued its operations, quietly disposing of Hugo's body, rumored to have been discarded in a local landfill. The show went on, with Lolita stepping into the spotlight, left to endure captivity's silent weight alone. Hugo's death sparked new conversations about the ethics of keeping orcas in captivity, shedding light on the immense psychological toll these intelligent creatures endured. His story serves as a reminder that the consequences of captivity extend far beyond the performances. Hugo's life and tragic end haunt the world's perception of marine parks and entertainment, yet his story is just one among many. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the often hidden, haunting realities of captivity for these majestic orcas. Each story reflects the power and unpredictability of nature, even in environments crafted to tame it. If these intense stories left you captivated, don't miss our next video where the horrifying last moments of Emily Cadeau reveal what happens when the marine entertainment industry goes too far. Click to watch and we'll see you there.